How's it going, everyone? Austin Honecker here. I just wanted to come on here for a while and give him a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite from last night, which was September 8th, 2021. I gotta say, it was awesome from start to finish. For the matches, match 1, it was Malachi Black versus Dustin Rhodes. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Malachi Black went over with the Black Mass. Match 2, it was Powerhouse Hobbs versus Dante Martin. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Powerhouse Hobbs went over with the Spine Buster. Match 3, it was Ruby Soho versus Jamie Hayter. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Ruby Soho went over with a soccer ball kick to the jaw. Well, after the match, as Ruby Soho was celebrating her victory, Britt Baker and Rebel came in the ring, and Britt Baker attacked Ruby Soho from behind and beat the shit out of her and executed the Fisherman's Neck Breaker. Then, while Rebel was just standing there, and Riho came out and attacked Britt Baker and Rebel with punches with forearms to the face, and then Riho tried to attack Jamie Hayter, but Jamie Hayter countered Riho's attack and executed a backbreaker to Riho, laying her out. Well, Jamie Hayter got a hold of Ruby Soho and was holding her down, and Britt Baker was getting ready to execute the curb stomp to Ruby Soho on the AEW Women's title, but Chris Statlander came out with a steel chair, and Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter retreated, and Ruby Soho, Chris Statlander, and Riho stood tall, while Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter were looking on out of the ring and everything, and Riho, Chris Statlander, and Ruby Soho celebrated and everything. That was cool. Match 4, it was The Pinnacle, which are Shawn Spears, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler versus The Dark Order, which are... Match 4, it was The Pinnacle, which are Shawn Spears, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler versus The Dark Order, which are Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, and John Silver. That was a great match, but the ending to it, The Pinnacle went over cause Shawn Spears pinned John Silver with the C4. Well, after the match, Evil Uno got into the ring and picked John Silver up, and Evil Uno was pissed off at John Silver for their heads colliding against each other during the match, and John Silver got pissed off back at Evil Uno, and Evil Uno and John Silver had a shoving contest, and Stu Grayson got involved, and then 5 got involved, and 10 got involved, and Colt Cabana got involved. So all the members of the Dark Order, which are Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, John Silver, 5, 10, and Colt Cabana, all got involved, all got into a brawl, and they were shoving each other and everything. And Anna Jay and Ty Conti came out on the stage watching the Dark Order beating the shit out of each other. And Anna Jay was disgusted with what she saw and everything. And Anna Jay was getting ready to go into the ring, but Ty Conti held Anna Jay back from getting involved in the brawl between the Dark Order and everything. That was cool. That was after the match between the Pinnacle versus the Dark Order, by the way. And match 5, which was the main event, it was Jon Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Jon Moxley went over with the paradigm shift. Okay. Besides the matches, the Lucha Brothers, which are Rey Fenix and Penta El Cerro Miedo and Alex Abrahantes, cut a promo, and Rey Fenix was saying that he was that him and his brother Penta El Cerro Miedo are happy that they're finally the AEW Tag Team Champions and everything. And Penta El Cerro Miedo spoke in Spanish, but I couldn't understand him, so Alex Abrahantes translated what Penta El Cerro Miedo said. And Alex Abrahantes said, Penta says, we fought with blood, sweat, and tears, and we're ready for all challenges and everything. That was cool. Eddie Kingston and Miro cut a promo. Eddie Kingston and Miro cut a promo. Well, Eddie Kingston was talking about him and Miro's match for the AEW TNT title at All Out, saying that Miro took the easy way out by executing a low blow to him, and talked about how nobody was God's favorite champion or God's favorite person or whatever, and Eddie Kingston was talking about how he wasn't done with Miro and that he wanted to kick his ass and everything. And then Miro cut a promo after Eddie Kingston and was saying that he was God's favorite champion, and he was gonna break his bones and serve him to his hot wife and everything. That was cool. CM Punk came out and got a microphone and cut a promo, and CM Punk was thinking, CM Punk came out with a microphone, and CM Punk cut a promo and was thanking Darby Allin, Sting, and the fans of AEW for making his in-ring return possible and everything, and then CM Punk was also saying that he got a hold of his wife, April Brooks, formerly known as AJ Lee, and AJ Lee, and he was saying that his wife told him, she said, "Baby, what's next?" He said, "Well, I don't know. I'll leave it up to the fans." So CM Punk asked the fans, he said, who do you want to see CM Punk go up against next? And then Taz was on stage at the commentary table and got a microphone, and Taz was saying, CM Punk, Taz cut a promo on the microphone at the commentary booth, interrupting CM Punk. CM Punk and Taz was saying, whoa, CM Punk. And CM Punk was saying, really, Taz, you're going to interrupt me? And he said, but since I have a lot of respect for you, Taz, go right ahead, but don't interrupt me again. Taz was saying, CM Punk, I'm getting tired of this whole love fest bullshit. And I tried to be a gentleman, but you want to sit there and be a tough guy? Well, Punk, you may have beaten Darby Allin, and you had a solid performance against Darby Allin at All Out. But don't you dare mention anything about Team Taz again. And CM Punk said, I didn't even mention anything about Team Taz. And Taz was saying, yes, you did, because I've heard you in interviews and everything, because your ass is everywhere. Well, Powerhouse Hobbs and Hook of Team Taz came out, and Taz was saying, he said, so yeah, Punk, you have mentioned Team Taz because I've heard all your interviews and everything. And CM Punk was saying, he said, well, Taz, since I respect you, how about we do? And since you think I mentioned Team Taz, well, how about it? How about you bring on Hook? How about you bring on Ricky Starks? How about you bring on Powerhouse Hobbs? All four of you. He said, how about all four of you come at me? Because just like you always said, Taz, beat me if you can, survive if I let you. And CM Punk dropped the microphone and left the ring, and while Taz, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Hook were looking on and everything, that was cool. Proud and Powerful, which are Santana and Ortiz, cut a promo, and Santana was talking about how the war that him and Ortiz went through with FTR, which are Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, and everything, and Santana was talking about how him and Ortiz came out on top with that feud, with FTR, but now they're moving on to other things, and Santana was saying that they're gonna climb the rankings of the tag team division, and they're gonna get their shot at the Lucha Brothers, which are Rey Fenix and Penta El Cerro Miedo, for the AEW tag team titles and everything. And then Ortiz was going on multiple times saying, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, and everything. That was cool. Tony Schiavone interviewed Ruby Soho, and Tony Schiavone was asking Ruby Soho, Ruby, since you won the 21-woman Casino Battle Royal, why did you make an open contract to fight anybody just coming off fresh of your Casino Battle Royal victory? And Ruby Soho was saying, Tony, the reason I requested this match with an open contract is because I don't want people to think I just got lucky. And then Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter came along, and Britt Baker was saying, whoa, Ruby Soho, the winner of the 21-woman Casino Battle Royal and the number one contender for my AEW Women's Championship. Well, listen, Ruby, tonight you will be going up against my protector, my muscle, Jamie Hayter. And Britt Baker was talking shit towards Ruby Soho and everything, and then Ruby Soho was saying, and Britt Baker, the woman of a lot of nicknames. Let's see. DMD, the face of the AEW Women's Division, the AEW Women's Champion, and my favorite of all, the baddest bitch on the block. And Britt Baker was saying, well, Ruby, and Britt Baker continued to talk more shit, but then Ruby Soho was saying how she broke Britt Baker into the business and everything as well, and then Britt Baker was saying, well, Ruby, unlike you, I've actually accomplished something in the wrestling business by being the AEW Women's Champion, and since your whole nickname is the Runaway, how about you run away back to catering like you did 4 years ago? And everything, and then Britt Baker and Rebel were doing their whole Dr. Britt Baker DMD thing while Jamie Hayter was looking on, and then Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter left, and Ruby Soho told Tony Schiavone, she said, Tony, she may be your girl, but I'm going to kick her ass. And then Ruby Soho left while Tony Schiavone was looking on and everything. That was cool. Dan Lambert and the Men of the Year, which are Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page, were up on the balcony, and Dan Lambert had a microphone and cut a promo and was saying uh, how AEW was a shit promotion and how they brought in people like CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, and Ruby Soho, calling them skinny little dorks, and was saying that AEW wasn't legit wrestling and everything because of skinny people like CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, and Ruby Soho. And Dan Lambert was talking about how the AEW, the whole AEW locker room, all they are is a bunch of wimps and not real wrestlers and everything. And then Dan Lambert was putting over the Men of the Year, talking about how they were the two best wrestlers on the AEW roster. And Dan Lambert was also saying that Dan Lambert was saying, and since you have two of the best wrestlers in Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page in the AEW locker room, well, I'm setting out an open challenge to anyone to put their money where their mouth is and man up and face Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page and try to shut them up once and for all. Because if not, I'm going to drop more truths on this shit show of a promotion until this promotion goes to the ground and everything. Which that was cool. Matt Hardy, along with the rest of the Hardy family office, which are the Butcher, the Blade, and Helico, and Jack Evans, cut a promo, and Matt Hardy was talking about how he was going to cut Orange Cassidy's hair, and then Orange Cassidy, along with the rest of the best friends, which are Chuck Taylor and Wheeler Yuta, and Orange Cassidy was saying, so, Matt Hardy wants to cut my hair. Whatever. That was cool. MJF and Wardlow came out, and MJF got on the microphone and cut a promo talking about how before All Out, he beat Chris Jericho 3 times and then beat him a 4th time at All Out, but the decision was reversed because of unbiased feelings towards him. That AEW has unbiased feelings towards him. And he said, because everyone that I know is unbiased towards me. Is biased towards me. And MJF was going on about how AEW came to a shitty town called Cincinnati, Ohio, or better yet, Shitcinnati, Ohio, saying that when MJF was talking about how Cincinnati, Ohio was a dump and how it was called the Mid-State and everything, talking about how this chili how some restaurant chili place, I can't remember the name, was mid. And talked about how the Cincinnati Reds haven't won a game since 1990 and that they were mid and was pretty much talking shit about Cincinnati, Ohio, and MJF went over and looked at Brian Pillman Jr.'s great aunt and was saying, he said, now Linda, don't look at me, honey, because I'll knock your teeth right down your throat. And then Brian Pillman Jr.'s sister was running her mouth, and MJF said, You have something to say to me, honey? And she was pretty much signaling, and Brian Pillman Jr.'s sister was pretty much signaling MJF to bring it on. When MJF started talking more shit and got out of the ring, and MJF ended up talking more shit towards Brian Pillman Jr.'s sister, and MJF said, so, Toots, you have something to say? And then MJF put the microphone up to Brian Pillman Jr.'s sister. She said, well, I'll have you know that I am the daughter of the loose cannon Brian Pillman Sr. MJF was saying, well, that explains why you have vile looks, sweetheart. And then Brian Pillman Jr. came out, and Brian Pillman Jr. was saying, MJF, you want to come out here and shit on my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio? Well, newsflash. Cincinnati, Ohio is not only my hometown, but it's also the hometown of my father, the late great Brian Pillman Sr., and also the hometown of John Moxley. And not only do you come out here and insult my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio, but you also come out here to insult my family. To insult my family. And that right there I take personal. Now Maxwell Jerkoff Friedman, or Maxwell Jacob Friedman, or I should say Maxwell Jerkoff Friedman. I know you come from a rich upbringing in the state of New York. Well, I didn't come from that well-being. I came from the upbringing of I didn't have the upbringing that you had growing up. And Brian Pillman Jr. was talking more shit towards MJF, and MJF said, so, Junior, you really want to get in a microphone war with MJF? Well, let me tell you something, Junior. Not only was your father, the loose cannon Brian Pillman Sr., a piece of shit, but your mother, Methany. And as soon as MJF called Brian Pillman Jr.'s mom Methany, Brian Pillman Jr. dropped the microphone and went in the ring and was getting ready to attack MJF, but Wardlow stepped in the way, and MJF was saying, oh, I'm sorry, Junior. I meant to say Melanie, not Methany. And then while Wardlow was standing in front of Brian Pillman Jr., MJF said, Wardlow, you really want to help me out like you did at All Out? Well, let me tell you something, bud. Why don't you stand in the corner and look pretty while I take care of this myself? And Wardlow stepped over in the corner, and MJF was saying, now, where was I? Oh, yeah, Junior. Not only is this city of Cincinnati, Ohio, full of dumbasses and everything, but one thing I also forgot to say about your mother, Melanie, and I'm going to say this one good time. She should have aborted you. And as MJF was getting ready to say she should have aborted you, Brian Pillman Jr. tackled MJF down and started beating the shit out of him and punching him in the face, and then punching him in the face while he was down, and then Wardlow grabbed Brian Pillman Jr. and tried to pulled him off MJF, but Wardlow didn't do anything else about it, so Brian Pillman Jr. went back on the attack on MJF, stomping on him and everything, and then eventually Wardlow grabbed Brian Pillman Jr. and executed a German suplex to him, laying him out, and then Griff Garrison came into the ring, and Wardlow clotheslined Griff Garrison, knocking him down, and then Wardlow picked Griff Garrison up, and MJF put on his diamond ring and executed a punch in the face to Griff Garrison with the diamond ring and knocked him out and everything. And then while the Varsity Blondes, which are Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, were laid out, MJF and Wardlow left the ring as well, while the Varsity Blondes were laid out. That was cool. John Moxley cut a promo talking about how Minoru Suzuki was one of the all-time greats in professional wrestling, but he was not this close to being intimidated by him or anything, because John Moxley was also saying, because Minoru Suzuki has entered my jungle and he's going to die and everything. Which that was cool. Brian Cage and Ricky Starks cut a promo, and Brian Cage was saying, "Ricky, haven't you gotten tired of this already?" Ricky Starks was saying, "Yes, Brian, I am getting tired of this." And Brian Cage was saying, "Well, Ricky, how about you face me one more time, one-on-one, mano-to-mano?" And Ricky Starks was saying, "Brian Cage, you're on. We will have one more match. And I will prove to you that I am absolute Ricky Starks. And I will prove to you and the whole world why I am absolute Ricky Starks and everything." That was cool. Some of the women on the AEW women's roster that were in the 21-woman casino battle royal at All Out, which are Anna Jay, Ty Conti, The Bunny, Penelope Ford, Thunder Rosa, Nyla Rose, and Jade Cargill all cut a promo about the 21-woman casino battle royal and everything, about their experience in it and their feelings towards the other women and everything. That was cool. Tony Schiavone interviewed Tully Blanchard, and Tony Schiavone was saying, "Tully, you requested this time, so the floor is yours, buddy." And Tully Blanchard was saying, "Yes, as a matter of fact, I did request this interview because what you saw out there with me, Shawn Spears, and FTR, that was actual leadership. Because I've been seeing some things, and that's Sting and Darby Allin. And I've noticed that Sting has been following Darby Allin within his career in AEW, like he's done throughout his whole career, riding the coattails of others. Well, Sting, Darby Allin, me and Shawn Spears, Shawn Spears and I are going to show you both what true leadership is and what a true team is. Because next week, Tony Khan, I want you to book Darby Allin versus Shawn Spears. And then eventually, Sting, I want to face you in a match one more time and everything." That was cool. Alex Marvez interviewed Brian Pillman. Yeah. Alex Marvez interviewed Brian Pillman Jr. and Alex Marvez was saying, "Well, since Griff Garrison's getting looked at, I'm going to do this interview with Brian Pillman Jr." And Alex Marvez was saying to Brian Pillman Jr., he was saying, Brian Pillman Jr., you and Griff Garrison suffered an attack from MJF and Wardlow. Can you give us an update on your partner Griff Garrison? Brian Pillman Jr. said, so Alex, you want an update on Griff Garrison? Well, what you just seen of Griff Garrison, of my partner Griff Garrison, is that enough of an update for you? And Brian Pillman Jr. was also saying, also MJF, I went to Tony Khan earlier after you and Wardlow assaulted me and Griff Garrison, my partner Griff Garrison, and I asked for a match against you, and Tony Khan gave me what I wanted. So, MJF, it's going to be me versus you at the Grand Slam of AEW Dynamite at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. Then the acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, came into the ring. Wait. And the acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, showed up in the trainer's room, and Anthony Bowens was saying, so the varsity bitches are having trouble. What a surprise. Looks like you all have had a rough night. And everything. And then Max Caster gave Brian Pillman Jr. a bouquet of roses. And Brian Pillman Jr. was like, oh, roses, thanks. Then Max Caster was saying, well, I brought those to you because, Brian Pillman Jr., I brought those to you because of what just happened to you. But since you went to Tony Khan about your match with MJF at the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York, I also went and politicked to Tony Khan for a match with you, and on Friday it'll be me versus you on AEW Rampage and everything. And then the Acclaimed left, and before the Acclaimed left, Brian Pillman Jr. was saying, all right, Max Caster, you're on. And then the Acclaimed left, and Brian Pillman Jr. was looking on while Griff Garrison was still covering his face with that ice pack. Well, during this whole thing, Anthony Bowens threw another ice pack at Griff Garrison before the Acclaimed left. Well, Brian Pillman Jr., after the Acclaimed left, Brian Pillman Jr. threw down the bouquet of roses and tore him up and everything. That was cool. And Tony Schiavone interviewed the Elite, which are Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson, Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, and Don Callis. And Tony Schiavone was saying, that's a lot of gold you all have. Well, Don Callis got on the microphone and was saying, thank you, Tony Schiavone. First things first, I want to congratulate Kenny Omega on being ranked number 1 in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And Don Callis was going on about how Kenny Omega was the greatest professional wrestler of all time and how the Elite were the greatest team of all time and everything. And then Don Callis was talking about how the Young Bucks got screwed over. Don Callis was also talking about how the Young Bucks got screwed out of the AEW Tag Team titles from the Lucha Brothers. The Young Bucks, which are Matt and Nick Jackson, getting screwed out of the AEW Tag Team titles from the Lucha Brothers, which are Rey Fenix and Pena El Cerro Miedo. But Don Callis was saying, but we're always a step ahead, so Nick Jackson, reveal the plan. Nick Jackson was saying, Well, since since my brother Matt Jackson and I both lost the AEW tag team titles at All Out against the Lucha Brothers, just like Don Callis said, we're always a step ahead. And yes, we did lose the AEW tag team titles, but we got our best friend back. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adam Cole. So Adam Cole came out and celebrated with the Elite, and Adam Cole got on the microphone and was saying, "Does everyone want to hear some story time with Adam Cole, baby?" And then Adam Cole was saying, "But first things first, Tony Schiavone, I know you're close with Britt Baker, but I'm going to tell you right now, you even look at her the wrong way, I will knock them stupid glasses off your face and I will kick your ass. So do us all a favor and get out of our ring, because I have some storytelling to do. Now get out of here, you nerd." So Tony Schiavone left, and Adam Cole was talking about how the reason he came to AEW was to be with his friends again, and how AEW was the best wrestling promotion ever, and was talking about how the Elite made AEW, and if it wasn't for the Elite, AEW wouldn't be a thing, and everything. And then Adam Cole was talking about how he will have his in-ring debut next week on AEW Dynamite and everything. And then Adam Cole was talking about how he was going to have his AEW in-ring debut next week on AEW Dynamite and everything. And then Kenny Omega got on the microphone and was saying, that was a great speech, Adam Cole. But one thing, and I'm going to say this, if there's one thing I don't like, and that's interruptions. Well, Kenny Omega was trying to talk some more, but Bryan Danielson came out, and Kenny Omega was saying, "Bryan Danielson." And yet, well, Kenny Omega said Bryan Danielson, and then was talking more shit. And then Kenny Omega was telling the rest of the Elite, he was saying, "Guys, can you give me and Don Callis alone time in the ring with Mr. Bryan Danielson?" So, the Young Bucks, which are Matt and Nick Jackson, the Good Brothers, which are Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, Adam Cole, Brandon Cutler, and Michael Nakazawa, all got out of the ring, and so did Don Callis ended up getting out of the ring as well, because Kenny Omega requested alone time. Well, Kenny Omega, as soon as Bryan Danielson got in the ring, Kenny Omega was saying, Bryan Danielson, you're just the person I wanted to talk to," and everything. And then Kenny Omega was talking about how Bryan Danielson wasn't on his level and everything. And then Bryan Danielson got on the microphone and was saying, "So, Kenny Omega, you say I'm not on your level? Well, let me ask the fans. Do you all want to see Kenny Omega versus Bryan? Do you all want to see Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega?" And then the fans chanted yes, and then Bryan Danielson was saying, "Kenny Omega, you talk about being so great, but I'm not seeing it. So how about you fight me and see how good you are? Because I want to fight you, and I want to see if you're on my level, because as of right now, you're not on my level." And then and everything. And then Kenny Omega was talking shit, and then Kenny Omega dropped the microphone, and Bryan Danielson dropped his microphone, and then Kenny Omega tried to attack Bryan Danielson, but Bryan Danielson tackled Kenny Omega down, had Kenny Omega on the ground, in the middle of the ring, and Bryan Danielson executed the label lock on Kenny Omega, but then the Elite, which are Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson, Adam Cole, Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, and Don Callis all came in the ring and ganged up on Bryan Danielson and was beating the shit out of him. And then Christian Cage, Frankie Kazarian, and the Jurassic Express, which are Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Marco Stunt, all came out to even the odds. And so Christian Cage, Frankie Kazarian, and the Jurassic Express, along with Bryan Danielson, beat the shit out of the Elite, all the members of the Elite. Well, all the members of the Elite retreated the ring, but Brandon Cutler was the only one left in the ring. So, as Brandon Cutler got up, he was trying to plead with Christian Cage, Frankie Kazarian, Bryan Danielson, and the Jurassic Express, but to no avail. So Bryan Danielson attacked Brandon Cutler with the running knee. And everything, yeah. So Bryan Danielson attacked Brandon Cutler with the running knee. And Brandon Cutler went out of the ring after getting attacked by Bryan Danielson with the running knee. Christian Cage, Christian Cage, Frankie Kazarian, Bryan Danielson, and the Jurassic Express were standing tall in the ring, while the Elite were standing outside of the ring, and then it was a big stare down between the teams of Bryan Danielson, Christian Cage, Frankie Kazarian, and the Jurassic Express staring down the Elite. So both teams were staring each other down and everything. That was cool. Now, besides all that, Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Taz done commentary throughout the whole show. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone done awesome as usual, and Taz done awesome as usual on commentary as well. But normally it's Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Excalibur, but Excalibur wasn't in attendance because in a couple days he's going to get married. So he's taking some time off for his wedding. And that's why Taz was filling in for Excalibur on this episode. So yeah, Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and Taz done commentary throughout the whole show, and they done awesome as usual. And the referees for the event were Rick Knox, Paul Turner, Bryce Remsburg, and Aubrey Edwards. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, the referees for the event were the referees for the event were Rick Knox, Paul Turner, Bryce Remsburg, and Aubrey Edwards. Aubrey Edwards refereed the match between Malachi Black versus Dustin Rhodes. The referees for the event were Rick Knox, Paul Turner, Bryce Remsburg and Aubrey Edwards. Aubrey Edwards refereed the match between Malachi Black versus Dustin Rhodes. Rick Knox refereed the match between Powerhouse Hobbs versus Dante Martin. Bryce Remsburg refereed the match between Ruby Soho versus Jamie Hayter. Paul Turner refereed the match between The Pinnacle versus The Dark Order. And Aubrey Edwards refereed the match between Jon Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki. All the referees done awesome as usual. Now, the match card for the match card for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite next week, so far that's been announced, it's going to be the match card for next week's All Elite Wrestling's the match card for next week's All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite that's been announced so far, the match card that is, it's going to be Adam Cole versus Frankie Kazarian, Shawn Spears versus Darby Allin, and Jade Cargill versus Layla Hirsch. Now, hold on. The match card that's been announced so far for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite next week, it's going to be... The match card for next week's All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite that's been announced so far, it's going to be Adam Cole versus Frankie Kazarian, Shawn Spears versus Darby Allin, and Jade Cargill versus Layla Hirsch. So the match card for next week's All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite looks like it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. The match card for All Elite the match card that's been announced for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage tomorrow night, it's going to be Pac versus Andrade El Idolo, Brian Pillman Jr. versus Max Caster, and Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Soho, Riho, and Chris Statlander. And the match card for tomorrow night's All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage, it's going to be Pac versus Andrade El Idolo, Brian Pillman Jr. versus Max Caster, and Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Soho, Riho, and Chris Statlander. And besides the matches that have been announced, Sting and Darby Allin will be appearing live. So the match card for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage tomorrow night looks like it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Now, the match card for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite's Grand Slam on September 22nd that's been announced so far, it's going to be Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black and MJF versus Brian Pillman Jr. So, the match card for the Grand Slam edition of All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite looks like it's going to be awesome as well. I'm looking forward to that one as well. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here for a while and give them a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Dynamite from last night, which was September 8th, 2021. Like I said, it was awesome from start to finish. And with that being said, my name is Austin Honecker, and I will catch your ass down the road. Peace out.